This Week in Startups is brought to you by DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is the fastest growing cloud infrastructure provider built for developers. With state-of-the-art data centers around the world, DigitalOcean is laser-focused on its mission to simplify infrastructure for development teams. Visit digitalocean.com/twist and get $10 credit to spin up a server in 55 seconds. And Braintree. Looking to set up payments for your business? Braintree gives your app or website a payment solution that accepts just about every payment method with one simple integration. Plus, we'll give you your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free. To learn more, visit braintreepayments.com/twist. Today at LAUNCH Mobile Wearables and IoT, Jason talks with Nextbit's Scott Croyle about the Robin. Then, Jason explores the future of the kitchen. And finally, Matt Galligan shares his lessons learned as Circa CEO.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Next up, we have Scott from Nextbit. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, have a seat right here. And Peter's going to come up. You've got a very interesting product in Nextbit. I actually haven't seen it yet, but this is it, huh?
This is it. This is Robin.
Wow, it's lightweight. That's the first thing I notice is lightweight. The next thing I notice is it's really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's an Android phone.
It is.
With a very big difference.
Yeah.
What is the huge difference between the Nextbit phone and a Samsung Galaxy?
Well, there's a couple of differences. I think, first of all, from a design perspective, I think as you pointed out, it stands out from the crowd. So if you take like the sea of phones, whether it's an iPhone or whether it's an Android phone, we put them all on a table, nothing really jumps out. And so from a design perspective, we wanted something that was a little bit provocative, something that really kind of was beautiful and maybe didn't use all the same tricks that's typical. But the second thing is that I think you were alluding to is that this is like what we call a cloud-first phone, which means we've basically integrated the cloud into it to solve some major pain points.
I can see it's a cloud phone because you have a cloud on the back.
We have a cloud logo.
So once you put the cloud logo back there,
then that makes it a cloud phone.
What does it mean to be a cloud phone? Because I have iCloud on my iPhone, and it's doing a wonderful job of, I guess, mitigating my photos and these 4K videos, getting them off my phone, or doing thumbnails of my entire collection. So that seems like a really nice feature. That's keeping my phone from getting too backed up, but I always wind up filling my iPhone up no matter what.
Right. So I think the way it works right now, so actually right now you can solve your storage problem on the phone, but usually it requires people to intervene.
Hours of work.
Exactly. You either have to go delete some apps and you delete some photos. And that usually happens actually when you're recording a video of your kid, or you're at a concert trying to record something.
Super convenient.
Exactly. And you get that message that pops up that says, hey, you know what? You need to delete some stuff. So what we do is from the time you log into Robin, we start synchronizing your applications to the cloud, and we start backing up your photos and videos to the cloud. And in that moment, and we do it, by the way, we do it smartly when you're basically plugged in on Wi-Fi by default. So no power drain, no
4G,
data consumption.
Yeah.
Yep, no data consumption. But when that moment, when you actually are starting to run out of space, what we do in that moment, even if you're in airplane mode, we can simply remove applications that you haven't used in a while, and we can downsample photos that you haven't looked at in a while. And so what we'll do is we'll leave behind a shadow icon on the phone, and I can show you in a demo here in just a second on what that looks like. And then we'll downsample to a screen res photo. So as you're using your phone, actually nothing really changes. So
let's take a look. Yeah.
So here we are, just looking through this. Can you see that there?
This one, yeah. Great.
All right. So as I'm just it's just looked like a normal app tray, but if you'll notice here, the Spotify application is grayed out.
It is.
That actually means it's not there. But let's say, and the reason why it's not there is I'm actually more of a Pandora guy.
Yeah, so I haven't used it in 6 months.
I haven't used it in 6 months. But you come by and you're like, hey, you know what? You should check out something on Spotify. So what it'll do in that moment, I just tapped it, and because I'm on Wi-Fi right now, by default, it just starts pulling down the application from the cloud. Once it gets all the way back down, you can see it starting to turn green, the application icon there.
Oh yeah, it's slowly fading to green.
Exactly.
That's a very nice touch.
Exactly. And so, and then what we'll do once it's fully downloaded is we'll sync back up their credentials and data, and it's like it's never been removed.
Oh, because I was about to say, the worst part about getting a new phone, which I always, like every year I upgrade to whatever the latest is It's just basically you lose a day of your life.
You have to log back into every single app and remember your passwords and all that stuff.
That's right.
So here you have my credentials, and if I have playlists, they're obviously associated with the credentials.
They're all
And if
right
I've
there.
downloaded data, is the data in that state also returned? So
For most applications, it does. With an application like Spotify, we clear the cache because you haven't used it for a while, so there's no reason to actually take up space on the phone. But we will clear the cache off the phone. It says here I'm offline.
Yeah.
But if we can get it to read here, it would show that we're logged in.
Yeah.
All right. Something problem with the Wi-Fi. So we got the download down, but it doesn't work. And then if you kind of go up here, I'm going to show you just kind of conceptually the way to think about the storage. So if you look at a typical storage tab on the phone, this is what we call local storage, and this is what we call cloud storage. And so the way Robin is shipped is it's shipped with a 32 gig, what we call offline storage. And then when you're connected to the cloud, this demo here is 50 gigs, but we sold it with 100 gigs in the cloud. So when you're online, the phone will look, feel, and act like a 100 gigabyte phone.
And
that's included with the phone. You don't have to pay extra for that.
No, that's included with the phone. Yep, that's right.
So, Peter, what do you think the impact of this sort of technology, the cloud-based phone, is going to be on just general consumption and even laptops, et cetera?
Well, I think there's two elements. I think one is people are clearly using a lot more of the storage capacity of their devices. I mean, a 16 gigabyte phone is not enough anymore, right? And I think something that lets you intelligently manage what is on the device and what isn't on the device. I think the consumer shouldn't have to think about this stuff if you're offering it as a cloud-based solution. It's one of the complaints I have about iCloud is that I have to spend a lot of time thinking about what's on the device, what isn't on the device, managing it. I love the idea of also it not just being about big files like music or photos, but also for apps. So, being able to manage that. And there's certainly a lot of those of us who install a lot of apps on our phones. There are things that we use very infrequently, which might take up space, but we don't necessarily want to be sacrificing that space on our device.
Yeah, no, I had like 4 or 5 Disneyland apps, and I'm like, oh, I don't go there, so I delete them all. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm going back to Disneyland 2 years later, 18 months later. Oh, I got to go find them all again, the wait time app, and reinstall everything. It's a pain in the neck.
We see something similar with games where you get to, level 67 on a game. You're like, do I really want to delete that? I'm not playing it anymore. But so anyway, I think the point is that philosophically, you just keep using your phone like you've always used it, and we'll manage the storage in the background.
You did a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or your own?
We did a Kickstarter campaign.
How did it go?
It went great. So we met our goal in 10 and a half hours, which was amazing. That was all on the first day. And that was super exciting, and we ended up around $1.4 million, which was terrific.
And so that represents how many phones? A couple of thousand?
Roughly around 4,000 phones, about 3,300 individual backers.
So you're basically starting a handset manufacturer.
That's right.
On Kickstarter. It's kind of mind-blowing. What's your background that led you to do this? And do you think you can eventually become a competitor to an HTC or a Svajian, I guess, or Samsung? I mean, what's your aspiration here?
Yeah, so I think right now there's a lot of disruption in the mobile space. I used to be head of design and user experience at HTC, so that's one of the.
Those are beautiful phones, by the way. I've had an HTC.
Thank you
twice.
very much.
HTC One, I guess, was.
Yeah, the M7 was a big one. Yeah. And then the two founders are both from Google, from the early Android 1.0 team. So we've got a well-rounded team in mobile. We know the industry, and there's actually quite a bit of disruption right now happening, like particularly on the Android side of things, where you see people like HTC struggling, even Samsung not struggling because they're struggling from the standpoint that they can't maintain their high price point. So there's a lot of downward price pressure, and you're seeing people like Xiaomi and OnePlus, and now people like us, like Nextbit. It basically exposed the fact that you can get an awesome phone, 5.2-inch full HD screen, Snapdragon process, all the kind of checking all the boxes for around $400.
Hey everybody, I want to tell you about DigitalOcean. They are a longtime partner of our program, and we use them for our hosting here at This Week in Startups. It's the best place to get your application off the ground, and it's the easiest place to scale because they use these amazingly fast, awesome servers with SSD drives, solid state drives, and you can deploy them in under a minute, 55 seconds in fact. And of course, DigitalOcean has fantastic user experience that empowers developers and helps you build and scale web applications. You can do customized infrastructure, or you You can just choose from a one-click deploy of a popular image, things like Node.js, Magento, Docker. It's a really simple API, and they've got over 550,000 developers deployed on their infrastructure. It's amazing. It's very straightforward pricing, too. That's why people really love it, especially startups. Plans start at just $5 a month. So you can get started and play with it right now. And with hourly pricing, you're only going to pay for the resources you actually use. You get one monthly bill, so it's super easy. Clients include TaskRabbit, Universe.com, Flywheel, Compose, us here at This Week in Startups. And it's really full circle for us here at This Week in Startups because I had Mitch Weiner on as a guest caller on This Week in Startups, 4 or 5 years ago. And then he went on to found DigitalOcean. And now, he has come back and paid us back by sponsoring the program. And I want all the loyal listeners out there who appreciate This Week in Startups to go give DigitalOcean a try. Go to digitalocean.com/twist, digitalocean.com/twist for a $10 credit. Go ahead and get that $10 credit at digitalocean.com/twist. And they're giving a huge credit to all of our incubator companies. Thanks again for that. And thanks for DigitalOcean just sponsoring independent media like This Week in Startups. We couldn't do it without you. Let's get back to this amazing episode. And they're charging $900 or
they're charging like $650
and Apple charges $800, $900.
Exactly.
So you have Apple charging $800 or $900, and their margin is what, $500?
It's tremendous.
So they're making $500 when somebody buys 128.
That's right.
Then you have the Google or the HTCs or the Samsungs. They charge $500, $600. What's their margin like?
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly what their margin is, but I think that one of the
things they make $200 or $300 a phone.
No, and this is why they're struggling because they sell to the carriers. The carrier takes a margin there, and so they're actually kind of stuck, right? Their number one channel, which is the carriers, keeps their price high, and then you have people coming direct to consumer like Nextbit that actually can offer something much less expensive.
So you're going to offer it for $350.
It's $350 on Kickstarter, which is now gone. It's $399 actually when it ships in January.
And now the Apple has moved, Peter, to selling direct for the full fair price, right? Like this is going to be the new model?
Yeah, I think that we're seeing a big trend here in the US away from the carriers owning the sales relationship with the device, and people are buying more unlocked, unsubsidized devices. Finally, it's starting to look a little bit more like the Chinese market. I think what's interesting about what Nextbit is doing is that there is this sort of premium market for these $400, $450 Android handsets, but layering in this cloud-based service, you actually start to kind of lock in the consumer in a way that makes it difficult for them to switch. If they switch from a Nextbit phone to a Xiaomi phone, they lose all the cloud integration, the backups, and things like that.
And this is something that's been lacking at Android, which is why the manufacturers are struggling. You could go from an HTC phone to a Samsung phone to a Motorola phone because you're tied into Google services, not the OEM services. Yeah,
it's always confusing when you get a Samsung phone or one of these other phones where they're like, I have to authenticate with all your products. I don't want to use HTC's photo or mail app. Like, how long are they going to be in the game for? So if you're selling it for $400 or $350, do you make any money off of it?
We do, absolutely.
$100? What?
Absolutely. We knew it well enough to make money on it.
Well enough to make money.
No, we wouldn't be in this if we hadn't.
Talk to me a little bit about, since you're so deep in the industry, the sort of impact of Cyanogen.
Cyanogen.
Explain what Cyanogen is for people who maybe aren't familiar, and what the impact of that product and project has been on the ecosystem.
Sure. I'm not an expert about Cyanogen, but what Cyanogen is basically a fork off of Android. So it's essentially Android. And Cyanogen's business model is to actually offer competing services to Google. And so they'll go to a region and say India, and say they'll partner with a local maps company. They'll basically take Google services off and they're like, hey, we'll partner with the local services there and create something. So it provides, it provides at least a nominal threat to Google that their services won't be carried in these other developing markets, which is really the focus. Similar to the way it is in China, where Xiaomi has offered all their competing services. Like the Play Store doesn't exist in China. There's like 35 or 40 application stores. And so Cyanogen is essentially trying to do something like that.
And you're using the approved version of Android.
Yeah, so it's what they call CTS compliant, which means that we can carry all the Google services. So it's got Gmail, Google Now, Google Maps, all the things that consumers want.
But do you have to integrate them on like some top level or in a certain way? In other words, if you wanted to go with Bing search or DuckDuckGo or something, would you be able to swap that out or no?
No. Yeah.
So that's Google's.
If you want the Google suite of services, meaning Maps and Gmail and the Play Store and all that sort of stuff, there's a minimum suite of stuff that you have to carry.
So it's bundled.
It's bundled together, yeah.
So they basically, when Google claims the whole thing is open and it's open source and you can do whatever you want, it's true to a certain extent, unless you have to get approved, in which case you have to carry their services. That's where they make their money.
Well, so we could take our experience and do something similar to Cyanogen. You're basically like, we're going to round out all of our own set of services. But you can imagine how difficult that is. You've got to find Maps, you've got to find Search, you've got to find you've got to find Mail. It's proven to be very difficult.
Can you also put on, though, if you wanted to put Mailbox on or Outlook?
Yeah, you could do preloads.
You could do preloads and not get in trouble with Google.
Yep, absolutely. But I mean, you could load on a competitive browser if you wanted to. But I have to say that with our customers, they don't want preloads. This is one of the great things about Android is that you have highly educated people actually going in and buying phones and wanting to customize it themselves. And this is one of the reasons, again, that HTC and Samsung, these guys are struggling, because when they go to the carriers, that's what you get the carriers selling their services on the phone. So by basically going direct to consumer, we can offer a more pure experience, and then customers can go customize it however they want.
In fact, you actually offer, if someone roots their phone.
That's right. So one of the things that this community loves to do is actually root a phone and load other stuff onto it. And typically, you'll have like a lockdown bootloader. So we have an unlocked bootloader, which some other manufacturers do. But we're going to take it a step further where your warranty is covered, even if you unlock the bootloader. Nobody else does that right now. And I think the thinking is just to be kind of transparent, is that you just spent $400 on a phone. You should be able to do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, it means if you want to get very deep and make some very serious modifications to the phone, to the operating system, like you can do that.
That's right.
You can kind of get the phone that you want.
That's right.
And most of the people do that for what purpose? Is it just hackers who want to just, or is there actually a specific app that you really need to use one of these bootloaders and
Well, there are a few. There's stuff like Helium, and there's a few others where people... Helium, yeah. It's like a backup. It actually helps you do that perfect backup and restore as you're moving from the device to device. So it helps you carry your app data and credentials from one to another. And you have to have special permissions to actually be able to pull that off. But I think the reality is you're talking about developers, you're talking about people that are super interested in it and kind of going in deep. But I wouldn't call that our core customer. I would say that our core customer is absolutely kind of like targeted towards those because they're into Android. They want a cool Android phone, which doesn't really exist right now.
Yeah.
There's definitely high-powered ones that people get excited about, but where's the one that makes you feel cool or makes you feel different or makes you feel special?
Yeah, could you talk a little bit more about the design? Because I think a lot of people don't know that you really, with HTC, pioneered the design of the metal unibody phone, which now everybody uses, including Apple. And I think that, I know that when I heard that you were, working on a phone with Nextbit, I was pretty excited because you really sort of set the bar for beautiful phone design.
Well, thank you.
And
it wasn't just me. I have to say that we had a huge team at HTC. So
I know, but you show it so you're being a little modest. And I think that when I saw this phone, when you first showed it to me, I immediately thought of some really iconic Japanese phone designs like.
Somebody mentioned the info bar recently.
Yeah, the info bar, which Mark Newson, who's now worked on the Apple Watch, designed for KDDI in Japan. Plus Minus Zero, which is an amazing industrial design shop in Japan, which makes amazing consumer products. That was sort of the first things that I thought of. Yeah. But I'd love to hear more about how you came to this design, because it's sort of cutting against the grain right now with all the metal phones that are out there.
Hey everybody, let me tell you a little bit about Braintree. It's a full stack payment solution for all your payment types for your customers. Yes, you can do mobile payments fast, easy, seamless, and secure. And you can add it to your apps with just a few lines of code, and then you'll be able to accept Apple Pay, Android Pay, PayPal, Venmo, credit cards, and of course, Bitcoin, everything. And if some other new way to pay people comes along, you know the Braintree team will support that too. Developers love it, founders love it, because it's got superior fraud protection, fast payouts, and continuous world-class support. You'll have fewer abandoned carts, more sales with Braintree's best-in-class mobile checkout. And their customers include, are you ready for this? Uber, Thumbtack, Hotel Tonight, Airbnb, GitHub, and StubHub. And I'm an investor in 2 of those 6 companies. And you'd be in good company to be in that class of companies. Well, here's a call to action, everybody. They're going to give you $50,000 in transactions fee-free. Yes, that's for the people who are on the This Week in Startups audience. If they go to BraintreePayments.com/twist. BraintreePayments.com/twist, and you'll get $50,000 fee-free. You can't go wrong with that. Developers love it. It's easy to use. What more do you need to know? Thank you to my friends at Braintree for sponsoring independent media like This Week in Startups. Okay, let's get back to the program.
It's so funny. Ever since HTC did the HTC One that you were talking about, which had the all-metal unibody, then Apple kind of copied that antenna design, and now everybody can do it. What that means is that the quality level in terms of materials has actually kind of gone up across the board. It means even like anybody can do it. In fact, you can walk over to China right now to some ODM and say, "Oh, give me number 8," and I'm telling you, it'll look like an iPhone. It's not actually hard to do. But because of that, what happens is everything looks the same because you can kind of execute at that level. And so we did. We went into it that basically like, look, we wanted something original. We wanted something that was fresh. And I actually wanted something that was much more personal. I think one thing that happens with design is that you take inputs from a lot of different people. You can imagine, you've got your CEO, who I reported to at HTC. You've got the CEO of AT&T, who's going to weigh in. You've got Verizon. It just goes on and on and on. Then you have the region sales teams. They're all weighing in. And by the end of it, if you've got something like the HTC One, actually to get it through, you're pretty happy. You're pretty lucky. It's pretty hard. And I think we had a pretty good run at HTC, but it had just gotten much more challenging, I think, to really break out of even our own mold. I think similar to the way Apple's kind of stuck. There's nothing really fresh going on there. Even when I saw the Apple Watch, I was like, okay, it's well executed. Don't get me wrong. But it doesn't feel special, it doesn't feel remarkable. So when we went into this, we're kind of like, well, let's jettison some of the things that you feel like are kind of automatic. One is to make it feel premium. You're going to make it out of metal, and you're going to do some chamfers on that make it shiny. That's a very common kind of trick that people do. I think number 2 is there's this kind of, it needs to be ergonomic, and we had phones that people are like, it slips out of my hand, it's too soft, and there's other phones that are like, it's too sharp in my hands. We're like, you know what? Yes, we want this thing to feel great in your hand, but let's let that solve itself. Let's make a form that we love, and then we'll dial in those radii to kind of make it feel right.
I really love the square phones. In fact, my biggest criticism of the iPhone 6 is it's so slippery. Mm-hmm. Everybody drops their phone constantly. In the iPhone 5, nobody dropped their phone,
right? Because
it had a flat bezel, right? And this has got the flat side.
Sure, there's more purchase to kind of grab onto.
Yeah, and I actually know somebody who had an iPhone 6, and they went back and traded it down to the iPhone 5 because they preferred the smaller size,
right?
And the better grip.
The other thing is like the premium nature of an iPhone 5 and iPhone 6, it comes from metal. On this one, it comes from simplicity. And I think that's probably your reference to Japanese design. You're like, wow, it feels special because it's almost conceptual the way we approach the design. They're like, you know what? It's a screen, which happens to be square. Let's make the phone square. That would be the tightest form factor that we could do to kind of like, that would kind of represent that screen. And then we started softening. And if I were to describe you, hey, I'm making a box as a phone, you'd be like, I don't get it. Well, then all of a sudden we started bringing in these depressions over the speaker grills that are kind of very soft and approachable, and this repeated circle motif. Again, this just makes it more approachable and gives it some character that really makes it I think kind of special.
And how did you decide on the colors for this?
So there's 2 colors here, which we developed internally, and then we did one Kickstarter color, which our community drove. The mint actually was the original concept pitch. Yeah. We actually went away from it in the explorations, and we kept on coming back to it. It feels fresh, it feels contemporary, but it doesn't feel like overtly male or feminine, and so it's kind of really hung in there. And then on the midnight side, we wanted something that hey, if you're not willing to kind of step out and wear something with color, and there's a lot of people like that, we wanted something that was a little bit more conservative, but we didn't want to do black.
Yeah.
So we came up with a very, very deep blue, gave it a little splash of color on the power button fingerprint sensor, but otherwise kept it pretty.
So have you raised venture capital for this company? And
we raised about $18 million, I guess about almost 2 years ago now from Google Ventures and Excel Partners.
Wow, so Google is actually investing in you, even though you're in some ways competitive, I guess, or?
Not really. If you think about it, I can't speak for Google, but when I think about it, I'm like, there's nothing cool in Android. So I think there's an opportunity to actually let me back up a little bit. So if you look at just based on what we did at Kickstarter campaign, what we found was that obviously it was Kickstarter, which means that people are buying a phone that's 4 or 5 months away. So we found our kind of key demographic between 25 and 35. But the people that we're having conversations with and the people that are super interested in it, they're 15 to 25. And that's because they're not tied into an Apple ecosystem. They're getting an Apple phone that's 16 gigs, which becomes a feature phone after 3 to 6 months. And they're looking for something fresh and cool. So
how often are you going to refresh the designs, do you think? I
think we'll probably refresh somewhat annually, something around there. Yeah.
And you're going to go into other devices, wearables, you think, or you just got enough in front of you with the phones? You did sort of diss the Apple Watch.
Well, this one's not, we're launching in January, so it's hard to think about doing a wearable. But, the idea of getting your storage and moving it to the cloud and then moving your credentials and stuff to the cloud, you talked about that earlier. It does speak to kind of our long-term visions, which is to put you on any piece of glass. So that basically, I should be able to borrow your phone and actually authenticate and all of a sudden have my stuff and my experience there. Kind of like what Gmail did to email.
Right, any browser I can get into email. I don't have to install Outlook and set up my iMap. I just log in.
Exactly. So
maybe a desktop even, if you plug this into a keyboard and,
sure, why not?
Saw the Microsoft announcement, I guess they're making the Windows phones into desktops as well.
Right. So I think there's still, we'll have to see how that stuff kind of converges, but I think the concept of, and we're not ready for a true cloud phone because you can imagine that requires even more coverage than we have now. And I don't know about you, but there are plenty of times where I don't find that. But we do feel the time is right for this kind of hybrid approach where it's basically a native app operating system. We're running apps natively on the device, and we're just offloading stuff that you're most likely not to use. So it's kind of this little bit like a half generation step forward. So we think it's ready for something like that. And it'll continue to move towards that. So yes, I should be able to walk up to a screen and have my experience there. I should be able to pick up any wearable and my experience should be there.
So maybe I'm on my MacBook and I could just pull up my Android in a window.
Yeah,
a virtualization or something.
Or at least the stuff that you find interested, for sure I want my photos there. We're already offering that. Yeah. But yeah, ultimately, sure.
All right, let's hear it for Scott with Nextbit. It's certainly fascinating and I ordered one. I can't wait to get it.
Yeah, thanks.
Cheers, Now we're going to go right into cooking, and this is going to get really incredible. Okay, Peter, you're going to stick with me.
I'm going to stick with you.
So, pronounce your company, Timothy.
Sereneti Kitchen.
Sereneti.
Yes.
Like the TV show.
Like the TV show.
You a fan of that show?
I am.
Very good. Did you name it after that?
No, we named it after Serenity Now.
Okay. So, what are we looking at here? I got to come around here.
First of all, we're going to start cooking. So I got.
Oh, I got to put this on? Okay.
You got one.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
So here we have the iPod and iTunes of the food world. So this is the iPod that executes food instead of music, and you have iTunes full of recipes instead of songs.
Okay, so you got your recipes there?
Yeah, so you can actually pick the right recipe here, and you insert ingredients. So this is like iPod and iTunes versus meets Keurig. So you have cartridges of fresh ingredients that are pre-prepped for you by grocery stores, by people who deliver you groceries. So you pop in cartridges of ingredients like this.
Totally blocking it. Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to look at this over your shoulder. So these are the cartridges.
Right.
So there's a cartridge of eggs.
Yep.
Cartridge of spinach. And this is a 3D printed prototype, it seems.
This
is 1.0.
Yes, this is actually the 12th prototype, so we engineered a lot.
How long have you been at this?
We've been at this for about a year.
A year, okay. Yeah. And you got a beautiful copper pot here.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a non-stick ceramic pot.
So you're going to pick cook.
Yep, so we're going to go ahead and close this. So all the cartridges are in. And
so you got those cartridges there. Those cartridges in the future might be in the refrigerator at the office.
Exactly.
So
and then you can pop it in as you need it.
It's sort of like the Keurig coffee things, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So iPod and iTunes means Keurig. So you push cook, you go to cook now, and cookie springs to life, and it starts cooking for you.
Okay. There's the robotic arm.
Yeah, this robotic arm is only actually a $50 robotic arm. We've done some breakthrough that nobody else has ever done, because typically robotic arms, you have joints, and each joint has a motor, and you run electricity through it. But when a pot heats up to 500 to 600 degrees, you don't want that much action going on here. So
and here comes the spinach.
Exactly.
It dumps it in.
Exactly.
We got a little piece got stuck in there, I see.
Yeah, so that's what we need to continue to do on our cartridge.
Yeah, that's a little cartridge work. Okay.
So this robotic arm's got no motors and no electronic drive between all this down. We cut it at a specific angle, and it's spinning on its own axis. And that's our patent pending technology to actually cook, just like you normally would be able to actually do it.
So I'm looking at it, it's a spatula, and it's just moving things around.
Exactly.
And people didn't notice this, but there was a little pat of butter in there, wasn't there?
There's a little bit of pat of butter because you can't have friction on friction.
Right.
So
there was some butter in the pan, or was it already in the spinach?
It was actually nestled between the spinach.
Nestled in the spinach, perfect.
So it has to get in there, so it causes a little bit of grease to actually make sure that the spinach gets sauteed enough.
Yeah.
And then the next tray goes in at the right time in the right place, and we're cooking.
And so eventually, your 12 iterations here.
Yes.
Eventually, will there be a refrigerator back here, and will this be the cartridges slide in automatically, robotically, and make it?
Absolutely.
Stuff some conveyor belts, like bring in ingredients in.
That's what we're intending in the future, because the whole ecosystem of the kitchen will be connected somehow. We think that at the end of the day, you want your food the way that you want it, and you want it at the time that you want it. So you could be 20 minutes away from your house. It could geofence you and says, you're coming home, I'm going to make food for you. So as you reach home, the food is already made. Or you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, eggs are already made for you. Because your alarm went off at 6, it makes it at 6:05.
You know what's just completely crazy about this?
Tell me.
I actually believe that this is going to work this time.
Thank you.
Because I'm watching it work. You know, we've heard about this kind of stuff. We've seen it in the Jetsons, and you're just like, it's very easy to dismiss it because, you know, but it feels like the steps that would have to happen, like robotics, and the pod companies, computer, it doesn't use any computer vision.
Not this version, but it's on our IP roadmap.
Yeah, and so the computer vision would be able to tell you what?
Exactly, in terms of where, how good the food is, different pieces of food, what the temperatures are. It can tell you a lot of different information. So.
And so right now it's very spatula based.
Right.
And then what's going to happen when this all finishes? I'll just have the pan and I'll take it out and we can just sample it. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing you need to clean is a spatula and a pot. That's it.
Okay, so let's talk about the cleaning element when you actually get this to version. What version do you need to get it to, do you think?
So we're about 6 months from actually going into DFM, which is designed for manufacturing, and then that's about an 8 months process to actually manufacture the product.
So a year and a half from now, this might be in my office?
Your office or your home. We just put this one in our first office, this prototype. We think that we're sitting on something phenomenal because we're taking $1 to $2 worth of ingredients. Like if you count up the cost of the ingredients here,
it's 25 cents a spinach.
Yep.
2 or 3 eggs, which is $1.
You're less than that.
Okay, 75 cents an egg.
Right, exactly.
And
just a sprinkle of cheese at the end, and it's literally less than $1. It's a 90-cent, ingredient pod. So we can actually take that and sell it for. Let's say if we sold this for $3 for breakfast for scrambled eggs with omelet, with an omelet quality, who would buy it in the audience?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that it would be fresh as opposed to making ramen at the office.
Exactly. That would be 50+% margin after packaging and delivery because we can deliver in bulk.
And so in the future, there'll be no chefs anymore.
No, chefs are actually part of our secret ingredient.
There'll be one chef.
There'll be a lot of chefs. You know what? Because the way that we relate this to iPod and iTunes is that there are 200,000 artists on iTunes, 26 million songs. There are 2 billion cooks or chefs in the world, trillions of permutations of recipes. So this is almost like a maker ecosystem as well, because if you have an amazing recipe, you share it, somebody else uses your recipe, one of our partners delivers the ingredients, you as an originating chef gets to monetize monetized. So
How
it's
did
a
it
brand
know?
new way
Let me
of
ask you a
monetizing.
question here, because the eggs look like they're about 80, 90% to
Right.
my eye, and it's about to put in the Parmesan cheese.
Exactly.
How did it know? Is it just the standard temperature versus time? And
Right.
the
So
quantity?
right now it's a system that is coded directly into the recipe. But as time goes on, there will actually be recognition that adjusts based on the food and also the ingredients, because not all ingredients are the same.
What's really fascinating about this as well is the 3D printed parts. This is all 3D printed, I can
A
tell.
lot of it's 3D printed. Yes.
Yeah. So you were able to model this with 3D printers.
Exactly.
And build the prototypes very rapidly. How many
Exactly.
months of work did it take to get 12 iterations through?
Right. So it's about a year's worth of work total.
How many people on the team?
Right now, 3 of us.
So 3 people a year.
Yes.
And you've probably invested, what, $200,000 so far?
Probably half of that. so far.
$100,000 to get to here.
Get to the here, right?
And then you're going to need another, it's going to get serious now.
Yeah.
You're going to need a couple $1 million to
Yeah,
get this to market.
exactly. So we're already actually launching in some of the biggest office space in San Francisco, Rocket Space, Founders Den, Runway, and 500 startups. They've already committed to us to put this in. And here, the food is done.
And if I turn this like this, I think the cameraman will actually get it. But I mean, it looks really good.
So try it.
Okay,
Tell me
let's
how
try it. Here it is.
So it's freshly cooked.
Now, Peter, you're a vegan, so
I
you don't
don't
even eat eggs. That's a big problem. So getting it out of the pan is going to be an issue too, right?
Okay, so just scrape it out.
Yeah, but when you have the regular unit, I mean, the eggs make a mess. They stick to the pan. I mean,
Exactly.
how are you going to clean something like that?
Exactly. So typically with non-stick, you throw it in the dishwasher, it comes off right away. Because this is
Oh, I see. So at the business location, you would have this take it out.
Right. And we would do it as a service, so we can actually deliver 10 pots with 10 meals and then just take it away, so making it so easy on you.
I hate that part. You need to have the, when are you going to have the dishwasher built in so it just cycles it out in dishwasher?
That's eventually coming. You know, it's on the Vitamix, so that's part of our plan, definitely. So just give it a try. I mean, think about this being delivered. This is why delivery food to us, it's like food that was cooked at least an hour ago. It's like giving you leftover food.
Come here, you Tim. Get over here. You.
Okay.
Good.
He wants to make sure I don't die first. So
Yeah.
It's delicious.
it is. Thank
It's
you.
I mean, very well done. I mean, if you tasted it, you would say that was. Hey, listen, it's much better than going to a deli,
Right.
where you don't know the quality of the ingredients and the thing's dirty in the oil.
Yeah.
But it's delicious.
We see this as an ecosystem because this is wouldn't have been possible, as you said, more than 4 years ago. But food has changed from a vertically aligned industry where one guy does chicken, one guy does tomatoes, to a co-packing industry that's horizontally aligned. There are 200-something companies trying to deliver you ingredients in some way, just the right amount, so that you don't have to waste any food, you're not wasting money, and now you can actually get amazing, delicious ingredients. Because this happened in music in the 90s and 2000s, and we had iPod and iTunes. We believe we're building the iPod and iTunes of the food world.
Now, let's talk seriously about the cleaning the dishes.
Okay?
You definitely
So lazy, Jason.
No, I mean, I just think it ruins the sort of value chain here. You have to be able to,
Right.
at an office, nobody
Right.
in an office wants to clean a pot.
Exactly.
So
Right.
eventually,
Yep.
if you had a built-in pot,
Right.
you had 2 of them,
Right.
one would just slide off
Right.
and be pressurized washed in a dishwasher
Exactly.
while the other one comes up.
Right.
You're going to add that to this, yeah?
That's further engineering. So
Yeah.
we wanted to scale quickly. This is why we subscribe to a lean model in terms of engineering.
Sure.
To get our first initial iteration out and then start making these. But eventually, yes, it's going to be self-cleaning and it's going to be making it so much easier than it is today. But
It
now,
is-
this is all you have to clean.
Right. And you didn't have to do any of the cooking.
Not at all.
It's really well done, and I have to say, it feels like you could actually get this done.
Thank you so much.
How does this compare to some of the? Because there are machines in Japan where you can walk up and get, all kinds of ramen and stuff like that. But isn't that all freeze-dried, horrible stuff? It's like instant coffee versus a robotic coffee machine.
Yeah, we want to emulate the way that actually people cook food. And this is why we really stuck on the robotic arm, because let's say if you just had a paddle that just spun things around.
Yeah.
Imagine this one big blob of eggs that's just going around. It's not the way that you cook food. You don't do this when you cook food. You cook it like naturally.
Yeah.
So that's how we engineered it, and this is why we think that this is the best way to cook food.
Awesome. Let's hear it for
Timothy Chen from Sereneti.
Timothy for Sereneti.
Awesome. Sereneti.
Awesome. Well done.
Thank you so much.
What do you think this is going to cost a company to put in?
Yeah, so eventually to the companies, it's free as long as they eat about 5 to 6 meals per day. because we
So if you can make $10 a day, $20 a day, you'll be making $600 a month. You'll be making $7,200 a year.
Yeah.
$7,200 a year. The unit will cost you $2,000 to set up and maintain.
Actually, at our current rate, we're getting about $10K per year in an office because we're selling meals between $5 to $8. That's across 3.5 million office kitchens in the U.S. That's $30 billion with 50%.
So you think you can do $10,000 a year
Yes.
per unit,
Right.
and the units will cost a couple grand to make?
These will mass manufacturers $150.
Wow.
Yeah. So eventually, we talk about ourselves as the iPhone to the AT&T is our Target or Whole Foods because they can give this away for $99 with a subscription meal for 1 year.
Right, and you'll deliver the food in the packets.
Exactly. Or you can go to the grocery store and pick it up one way or another.
Are you going to make it so you can make your own packets of food?
Yes, we want you to. That's the maker ecosystem. You make something great, somebody else eats it, one of our partners delivers, they get to monetize.
Got it. So I could order, let's say, 100 orders of salmon and put it in my refrigerator, and then I get the local. So I get the salmon from one person and the spinach from another, and make salmon, spinach omelets or something.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. It's really amazing. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Let's hear it one more time.
Awesome.
Sereneti. Okay. Now let's talk about Root.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Good, good.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us. This is Root. It's a turnkey device that allows you to grow a variety of plants in your home quite seamlessly.
A variety.
A variety.
Yes.
There are 3 varieties of plants we believe make people happy. So that could be anything from culinary herbs and vegetables to medicinal herbs like St. John's wort. And obviously everyone also knows about the 3rd type of plant, which is cannabis.
That makes people very happy.
That makes people very happy, that's correct. So what we want to do is empower people and allow them to grow whatever they wish in their home. And that we could do that by connecting to your smart device. If I pop over here, it's a quick setup. Once you're registered, you pretty much just set up your profile. If you have multiple roots, you can set multiple roots up. Perhaps you're growing a variety of different vegetables. And what you'll basically do is just go through a really quick tutorial that helps you set up. What you'll get in the mail are basically these small, we call them root pods. You'll pop them into Root throughout that tutorial. And pretty much after that, it's just set it and forget it. So once we actually connect to the device, we'll go and pick out a pre-packaged seed pack. And in the profile, you can actually track and see how your plants are doing. So what the app does is not just help you along the growing process, it will remind you and send you push notifications. So if you're out of nutrient, if you're out of water, it will let you know just through a short ping. But if you want to go and see how that process is going on in the app itself, you can see how your water level is doing. So if you're low on water, the planter might need that, and also just the health and status of your plants. So that being said, we can grow up to 12 plants in the system, which we consider to be a garden. Some other products on the market allow you to grow 3 or 4 plants. We wanted to give you a whole dozen. Yeah. And we do that through hydroponics. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it's just...
Explain it, yeah.
So hydroponics is growing plants without soil and instead just using nutrient-infused water. So that allows you to grow more plants in a tighter amount of space. So
how much water is in there? Is the whole base filled with water?
This whole reservoir is filled with water, and it's about 2 gallons, which means you don't have to change it very often.
And how does the water get up to the soil in the area up there?
So there's a recirculating system. This whole system is basically mimicking a plant's natural life cycle. So we have a full spectrum light at the top, and for the watering, we have a recirculating fountain, basically.
Got it.
And
so
that's all
tubes inside that are pushing water into each of those 12 pods.
Correct.
Now, I can either buy the pods from you, which will have a seedling in it, or like a little sproutling?
Right now, we're just shipping seeded pods.
Got it.
So I know you were mentioning Keurig as a model before. Yeah. Very similar. We're kind of the Keurig for growing, because you're just taking your pod, opening it up, putting it in, and then the plant comes out.
And can I also just put my own, whatever the nutrients or fertilizer in there myself, and then I just buy seeds, and you're happy if I do that too?
You could, although we like to use our methodology. So if you use our nutrient in our water, we can guarantee better results. And the other thing we're doing, instead of taking a standard approach to nutrient, we're opting into a natural system. So we also believe that in the market right now, organic food, the trends to just have a healthier, diet is going to, steadily increase and stay the way it is. So what we wanted to do was create a better nutrient that would, adhere to the system and be healthy for you and your family.
What does it cost to buy cannabis in one of these pods, and what would the eventual output be if you grew it yourself?
What we're anticipating is that with our system, you can grow what a patient would receive, and it's very state dependent, but usually that's anywhere from 4 to 8 ounces. And so we want it to allow the patient to have, a yield that is equivalent to that. So that being
4 to 8
said,
ounces a month? Or,
for the full year.
For the full year.
Right. So you would be able, but that's also dependent upon what you're growing, and obviously we're not able to provide that. So what we do provide are empty pods.
Right.
So if someone wanted to, grow that.
Well, in some jurisdictions you would be able to provide it, or you'd have a partner who could provide it.
We could do through partnerships, nonprofits, things like that.
Right. So if somebody were to send those pods, what would the pods cost, do you think, versus, let's say, if you were to buy it at a store? If you bought your medicine at a store versus growing it yourself, is it a 50% savings, a 90% savings?
We believe it's going to be at least a 50% savings because on average, an ounce can cost, dependent upon, again, states vary, anywhere from 200 upwards to like 500 an ounce. So what you would be doing is saving about 2,000, in cost if you're opting into our system, because once you're paying for seeds and our substrate, you're going to be saving in the long run.
What is the whole unit cost to buy and to set up?
It's an MSRP of $299. So that's for everything.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the full kit. The pods, if you opt into seeds, obviously the light comes installed.
Super fascinating. What do you think of these two products, Peter?
I mean, I think that people are, like you're saying, are very interested in having healthier lifestyles now, and I think bringing produce closer to the point of consumption.
Right.
People talk about food miles and how much carbon is used to be able to bring the food to you. I love the idea of being able to, bring it right into the home, being able to, reduce your impact on the world and have a healthier lifestyle to boot.
Right. And people really enjoy that experience. When you enjoy the fruits of your labor, we joke and we say, in this case, your non-labor, there's a really great satisfaction to that, and people really enjoy the process. We found that people just don't like to garden because they have a fear. There's a fear factor that they're going to kill their plants. They're just not going to be able to do it because of some kind of educational gap, and we want to show you that anyone can grow, and grow what makes you happy. Awesome.
And what did you think of the Sereneti?
I thought it was great. I would love to have one. So
it's kind of mind blowing that we've come this far. I mean, I think that if we're going to colonize Mars or something, we're going to need to have all these replicators and everything.
Exactly.
All right, listen. Continued success with it, and thanks for showing it. Let's hear it for Sereneti and for Root. And we have one more device, I think, which is Anova Culinary. Where are you?
Hey, Jason. How are you?
How you doing?
Good.
Show me what you're building.
Yeah. Here we go.
Okay, here we go. So I know what this is. This is a sous vide device.
Yes.
Explain to the audience what sous vide is and why people are so nuts about it.
I think we should start by saying, is there anybody that doesn't know about sous vide at this point?
Okay, well, that's going to embarrass me. How many
audience?
people here own a sous vide device? Who owns a sous vide device? That looks like about maybe 2 or 3, maybe 10 people. How many people have eaten sous vide food? Okay, that's about half. Great. So maybe half the audience knows.
So half the audience knows it. Half the audience doesn't know that they've eaten sous vide.
Precisely.
If you've had food in a nice restaurant, you've eaten sous vide. It's just an interesting technique that chefs have been using for years. And simply what you do is you put food in a pot of water, you put it into a bag. The device then spins water around in the pot, and it brings the food to a very precise temperature. This was popularized on a lot of different reality chef shows. We introduced the first affordable model in late 2013. 2014 was our first full year of sales. And I think we've done a really good job in kind of popularizing the technique. We're going on selling our 250,000th unit.
250,000 units of the Anova, and it's what are we seeing on the screen there? It says 77.4, 120. What is it?
That's the current temperature. That's a set temperature.
Got it.
All right.
And so it's very important that it keeps the water at a specific temperature. Why?
The very precise temperature. The whole.
You just got a new follower.
I did?
Yeah.
Nice. I love getting new followers.
Yeah.
The whole thrust of this is it's just there's kind of an opportunity that's opened in the kitchen for new science and technology, and it goes beyond kind of the robotic devices and our device, and it's more of a macro trend, which is
but we'll talk about the cooking technique, of why the cooking technique is so popular, because I don't know that we've established that yet. Okay.
Give me a moment.
Okay.
I think that there's a big shift in how people think about food preparation. Right?
Okay.
And the food preparation that's involved here is it's bringing food is molecules, right? It's bringing food to a very precise temperature. Mm-hmm. So medium rare isn't simply a description, right? Medium rare actually means 125 to 135, right? There's precision. It's just about bringing food to a precise temperature. That's all there is to it. So
right.
So I think.
But how is it different than, say, if I just grilled my steak on a grill? So what is the qualitative difference of a sous vide steak versus one that's just thrown?
Yeah, so if you want to talk about the benefits of sous vide, is that it's cooked consistently throughout, right? Yeah. So if you've ever been to a nice restaurant, you've noticed that you cut the steak and it's like, wow, there's no banded gray area.
Right.
It's moist, it's tender, it's delicious, right? So the benefits and the results of sous vide are pretty phenomenal. It simply is like it's the best way to cook a steak. What's funny is like I wasn't prepared for this because I just assume everybody at this point knows the benefits.
No, they don't. And I think what's interesting about
it's the best way to cook chicken. The chicken is unbelievable. It's moist. It's delicious. It's the best way to do vegetables. Vegetables come out
You haven't vacuum sealed this bag.
Right.
But in the one I use at home, I use the Sous Vide Supreme. I have like the...
Do you know that we talked about that in 2011?
What's that?
By the way, the Sous Vide Supreme?
Yeah.
This week in startups?
Yes.
You need to upgrade.
Okay, so anyway, I had this Supreme, and you vacuum seal it.
Yeah.
And that takes all the air out,
yeah.
and then you leave the product in there. If you do short ribs, you'll leave them in the Momofuku in New York will do 72-hour short ribs, low and slow. So you're cooking at a very low temperature, which if you lower the temperature, you would think, oh, dangerous, you're not killing the bacteria. But if you do it for a longer period of time, you will get the bacteria killed. And so it's safe if you do it at a longer period of time.
Bacteria die, like most bacteria dies in the 120 range. So it's just about getting the bacteria to that range and then they die, right?
Right.
Or never allowing them to grow in the first place. Because if bacteria is there and then it just dies and it's...
Yeah, but you can do it at a lower temperature.
Yes, yeah.
Than
so that is
a shorter period of time.
That's part of the technique.
Yeah.
We don't love talking about that.
Why not?
Because it becomes sort of specialty, right?
I don't think so. I think it's like...
One of the things that we're proud of is we have such engagement, and we know we can measure that through our app, right?
Yeah.
We know people use this all the time, and in order to do that, they're cooking less than an hour or a half an hour. So but every once in a while you do the specialty short ribs. Every once in a while
I have to say, I've done the hour-long stuff or the half-hour-long stuff. Like for salmon, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you really want to get the benefit of sous vide, I like if you do a steak, ribeye for a nice 3 or 4 hours, and then you finish it with a blowtorch. My gosh!
I'm going to bring you sea bass that I do in 30 minutes.
Well, fish is easy,
right? It's going to knock
right?
your socks off.
Fish is easy.
Yeah, fish is different.
But for really the rough cuts of meat, you have to go longer. I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it?
No, I think the point is it's about precision, right? I mean, you can do chef cuts, right? Hanger steak, strip steak, it's typically very difficult to do in a pan, right?
Right.
On the grill, it's so easy to overcook, right? That steak tends to turn out better with sous vide, and you do it for an hour, right? And the other thing that you have to point out is it takes 2 minutes to set this up.
It is very simple.
You go and spend time with your kids, with your family, and you come back and it's done, right?
And there's no cleanup because your food is in a bag.
Yeah.
And you can just pour it out and you have a clean pot.
Or freeze it, make a broth, whatever.
Yeah. Very good. All right. So, and you want to show the app a little bit?
Yeah.
You had that on the screen.
Yeah.
So you've pre-programmed some recipes, I guess?
Yeah. So this is the content. So we're working on rolling out a Wi-Fi system, right? We think that the connected experience makes this super interesting. It gives us a chance to differentiate. And I'd like to give a plug for we're hiring engineers.
So you need an engineer to help you get the Wi-Fi going?
Well, we just hired the CTO at Soch. Rod Begbie's doing a phenomenal job for us. So any engineers out there that are interested in helping to build a product that people love, please send us your info. So
this isn't connected to Wi-Fi yet. It's got the digital readout.
This is a Wi-Fi system.
Oh, this is.
And let me walk you through what we think of with the app and the technology. So we think there's a few different layers that we hit upon, right? One is sort of like a content layer, right? Like giving people time and temperature, being better than Google at providing the time and temp that you need to be able to cook, and doing it really well, right? So So we think
it's pretty basic. Like 1 hour at this degree, you just set it and forget it. It's super simple. Yeah.
It is basic, but for us, it's really important to guide people through that first experience. They've got this great result. Then we think it's like features that you can't otherwise do without the connected experience are super interesting.
Such as
you go to work, you get up, you put a piece of frozen meat in a pot, put some ice in. We'll give you notifications throughout the process. We'll turn it on for you at the right time, and you can. And we say, come home to the best meal ever, right? That's
so timing it perfectly.
Awesome. And giving you notifications, and most importantly, keeping the food safe, right?
Yeah. What does it cost?
It's $179 for Bluetooth, $199 for Wi-Fi.
Awesome. It's great progress, and if you haven't done sous vide, I highly recommend it. It really is the best way to cook. And if you get a little blowtorch, you can that's a lot of fun too. You can just take whatever you take out and blowtorch it real quick.
Yeah. One last
make it
point
crisp on the outside.
Is we should talk about some of the content partners we've got, like Serious Eats.
Great chefs.
They've done an amazing job. Kenji Lopez has done a great job.
Awesome.
We've got his time and temperature guides that help people go through the experience. I think I'm stuck here. There's one other point that I wanted to make about the...
Okay, well, we got to move on. Okay. So let's hear it for Sereneti, Root, and Anova. Very good. Awesome job.
Right, thanks.
And next up, I'm going to invite Matt Galligan from Circa to come on up. Well done.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay.
And I was lucky enough to be an investor in Matt's company, Circa, and they made what I think was one of the most beautiful and well thought out apps of the last couple of years. Great to see you.
How you doing?
Everything. So I was very proud of my association with Circa. It didn't work out, and I was talking to Matt, and I said, Matt, God, you're so talented. I look up to you so much. It would be so great if you would maybe talk about the lessons you learned, and then I'm really hoping you have another idea that you're going to do for a startup, because I would like to be the first investor in it. I'm such a fan of the work you did with Circa, and I hope you've had a good recovery. It's always so hard, isn't it, when something doesn't work out?
Yeah, it's working on it right now. Still in that phase right now, but
it sucks.
It does.
But there's a lot of lessons to be learned.
For sure.
And none of us are in this for one idea.
No.
We've all got many ideas, and you're a young guy who, you're going to do 2 or 3 more startups, I hope.
We'll see if I've got the energy for that, but we'll hope.
It takes, how long did you work on Circa for? Was it 2 or 3 years?
Almost 4 years, actually.
Almost 4 years.
Yeah.
Wow, it was a long time. Well, I'm really interested to see what the postmortem is, and I really think it's very brave and just really great of you to share what you've learned, because we're all in the startup community together. We all learn together. And so let's hear it from Matt from Circa.
All right. How's everybody doing? Late in the afternoon, getting ready to leave. Well, hopefully I can share a few lessons. So I'm going to kind of blitz through some of these slides. So as Jason mentioned, I am Matt Galligan, and I'm was the co-founder and CEO of a company called Circa. You may have seen it. It was a news application that was built for mobile from the ground up. Really, when we got this thing started, we wanted to address something that we saw in news, many different problems that we perceived, and just try to make a better experience. And so the first thing that we noticed, just to run back through what we did, was that the experiences that we found for mobile news really felt like something that didn't quite fit for the actual screen. We mostly saw experiences that resembled this, frankly. And we wanted to be able to fix that with something much more elegant and befitting of the mobile screen and experience. And so what we ended up creating was something that was kind of bite-sized news. You could catch up quick through the day, just jump into the app, flip through a few screens, and get completely caught up. We had a lot of great features that, frankly, still to this day aren't really found in anything else or are being readily copied by others, which is totally fine by now. But, kind of speaking back through the experience, it was really fantastic. We had a ridiculous amount of accolades. We were very, very happy to receive all of these things. We were constantly getting praise from Apple and Android and all of these different places. Our users absolutely loved the experience. This has 98.54 5 and 4 star ratings. It was actually 89% 5-star ratings, so it was like the customers really, really loved it. And these were thousands and thousands and thousands of ratings, not just my mom saying it was good. The experiences that people had, they had really, really passionate experiences. Like, thanks Circa, my mom, who's home on Long Island with no internet or TV service, is able to keep up to date with all the election news. That was when the hurricane was going on over there. We even had the great giants outlets, such as the New York Times, pretty blatantly drop us in their innovation report, which was not meant to be shared externally. And then a little bit talking about the specific features that we had, this ability to follow news. You hit follow and you would receive updates on stories as they progressed over time. It was a really, really badass feature, actually. And then right there under the first highlight, it says, we could create a follow button that offers readers a variety of ways to curate and receive their own news feeds. It's like, yeah, we just did that, and so they wanted to go tackle that. As far as how it was on the receiving end, our stats were pretty ridiculous. You see at the bottom there that we were over almost 3 times the median for the benchmark of news, and this is Flurry, and so you would see people coming back and back and back to this experience. Our retention was kind of ridiculous. You'd see that even after a week, when you were following stories, we'd see upwards of 80% of those people returning after week, 54% 13 weeks out. So all of that great stuff, all of this amazing stats and stuff to look back at, where did that get us? Unfortunately that's where it got us. So what's the deal with that? Why did we get there? And why can I be on stage right now and talk positively about this great experience that we had and still kind of come to terms with where we were? Well, the reality is I'm still pretty sad, and as are a number of our users. Apparently people are hopelessly uninformed now, which is too bad. But so I really kind of have to step back and understand, well, it's gone now. So what did we learn? Well, the first thing that I would say that we learned was we were in a news cycle and a kind of news consumption that doesn't really fit the wild growth that we were expecting. I mean, we were kind of shilling bad news most of the time. We had people that would leave reviews and say, I love this product, I love Circa, but man, does it depress me. And we didn't really have a great way to combat that because we weren't going after niche news, we were going after hard topics. I mean, we were going after news that was like Ebola hitting the US. In this particular instance, this was actually a Wired cover story from last December. That's how recently this kind of thing was hitting really hard. We were the main topic of a Wired magazine, in the magazine, turn the pages, there we were, cover story, because we beat all of the other news apps to the break of Ebola hitting the US. But that little bit that you see there, you won't believe what happens next. That's really what is happening with the rest of the news industry, is you have these very inflammatory reasons why people are going and seeking out other news entities. And so our sort of very plain Jane vanilla, like hard-hitting and important news, this very factual way of presenting it, wasn't really resonating with consumers. And unfortunately, when we were out there looking at how we were performing, we were actually comparing ourselves, this was a chart way back in the day, to kind of others that fit our class, that were mobile first, that were other news apps, and we really shouldn't have been comparing ourselves to those the whole time, because guess what? Investors were comparing us apples to apples with the likes of the BuzzFeeds and the Voxes and the Vices and the New York Times. And we were nowhere near them in that class. We were a mobile app. One random question, I don't know if your mic's hot, Jason, but it's like, we could not be out there and be asked on a public stage how many users we had because not a single other news app was willing to give that data out either. Would you agree with that? So it was really difficult for us to even benchmark our own success. Everybody else was out there talking about how many page views they had, but we had no metric that would even line up. Investors really didn't exactly get behind that. And no matter how much we wanted to try and explain, hey, we're better, this is a better experience, this is the way that we should be reading news, and this is the way that people love reading news, and our users are absolutely crazy about us, we were never able to kind of see the bigger picture. So this is kind of where the lessons come in or whatever. So the thing that we had to realize was we had to look at the bigger picture. It wasn't just about us being a news app and about us being out there and having this better experience. We had to be somewhere on par in some way with one of these other players, which meant that we had to be seeing extreme growth. And the reality was we were seeing good growth and we were happy with that growth, but we should have been really striving for dramatically higher growth. Now, the other thing is, in the early stages of starting companies, you always hear not having a board is awesome. And so many companies are able to thrive and get into a situation where they're able to hit the ground running and work really, really fast in those early days. And that much is absolutely true. And so not having a board is awesome until it's not. And the reality was Circa, for the entire life of the company, never had a single board meeting except for the one where we decided to wind down the company. And I've run 3 companies now. It's like, maybe I should know how to do these things. But the reality is having other people to just talk to and be present and be critical is absolutely important. And anybody that's in this audience right now that thinks, I'm going to hold on to this for as long as I possibly can without a board, you really should think about that otherwise. So just get a fucking board already. Money. Okay, so we had raised $6 million. Today, that's how much we have. And one of the things that we kept coming back to was this really big issue, which is we were constantly raising money. When we went out there initially, there were a couple people that were just absolutely enthusiastic about the idea. And some people started out not enthusiastic, got enthusiastic. I mean, Jason, I remember a meeting with you initially where you said, it can't be done. And a year later, I came back and you were like, well, you did it. And so here's some money, which is great. But after a while, there's a point where we really didn't have a major institutional partner step up to the plate that would have been able to keep us running for a long period of time. Instead, we had to collect a lot of investors. I mean, we had a pretty big cap table, which, by the way, is a little bit difficult to manage. Don't recommend it. We'll never do that again. So if I can say anything, if you can't raise a bunch from a few, don't raise a few from a bunch. That just doesn't work out like that. The other side of it is, you've got to be thinking a lot longer term out than maybe what we were. There were times where we were getting tight. We were able to go out and find the cash that we needed all the way up until the end. But at the end of the day, if you weren't really creating that strategy for how you're going to get out of this situation and think way, way, way longer in advance, it will come back to bite you. We learned that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. We had at least one situation. The reason why it seemed like it was just so sudden, we had such great press. We were launching, we were doing all these things, and then all of a sudden, Circa is dead. And internally, that's exactly what happened. We had at least one situation where I had the best acquisition banker in the business working with us to be able to help us get this company acquired. We were talking with a major media company. It was a fantastic situation. And literally at the 11th hour, like literally at 11 p.m. actually, the night before we were supposed to receive all of the stuff that was how this was going to go down and how this acquisition was going to complete, they pulled the plug. And actually they called our banker to pull the plug. It wasn't even like, it was kind of crazy. And he calls me and he's like, in my entire career, I have never seen a deal fall apart like this. So in our case, we were just completely flabbergasted, blindsided, had no idea what to do. And well, we did have ideas what to do. So that's what we stepped into next. But it was a dramatic moment where all of a sudden we were planning on this particular thing working out. And then it didn't work out. So the reality is you got to be prepared. Even that thing that feels just so damn sure that you can't possibly think of any other scenario where that's not going to work out, you must be prepared. Team, do your fucking diligence. We had wonderful people throughout the life of Circa. All of the people that ever worked for Circa all had wonderful characteristics, all had wonderful traits. We were very, very proud of everyone that came through. The reality is there are some people that maybe you don't always get along with. And so the other side of it is like maybe those issues could have been brought up. Maybe you could have known before that person even stepped into the company that wasn't going to gel with the team. Culture, team fit is incredibly important. A lot of times you can convince yourself. You can convince yourself that you want this person so much that you become blind to anybody that you may have an objection with. We did not always call the parties that would have been dissenting about that one employee because we just wanted them so badly. Do your diligence. And when you find out that that party is not the best person to have on your team, the key is to get it moving along fast. It's better for you, it's better for them. They can move on with their lives. You can move on to the next person. And transparency really, really helps. In some of these cases where we got tight, where we were trying to find the next transition, whatever it was, we had to make sure that everybody was kind of brought up to speed. And reality was, it didn't play out like that in a lot of ways. And you can get into a situation where the more you keep from the team, the more it becomes this powder keg that eventually is going to burst. So to the extent that things can be transparent throughout the life of the company, it's better. It is harder, no question. And you see some companies that kind of grapple and struggle with that. But I would say transparency is better than not. Revenue. How much did we make through the entire life of Circa? About this much. It was when we were selling furniture as we were shutting down. So really it was zero. That's one of those things where we sort of passed it along. We just kept it pushing it away because we said, look, We know that the experience that we want to have and provide inside of this app is not going to be possible if we're just pulling ads off the shelf and being able to stick them in there. We had to have a much better experience, but we should have built that experience. We should have built it a long time ago. We should have built a sales team around even just getting somebody to sponsor the app for a little while so that we could have had it kept going just a little bit longer. Because if you're not growing at a completely bonkers clip, you need to be making money. If your growth isn't doing this, the investors don't care. And they're going to want to know how you're going to be able to sustain. So I'm going to underline that again, completely bonkers. It's scientific. Look it up. Because angel and VC money does not last forever. It is a well that will dry up. Now, on the other side of this, I have no idea. The universe is weird, and as is Facebook, but it dropped this on me today, which is I wrote this exactly 2 years ago, and I'll just read it. In its startup founder's life, there are days of incredible joy, days of seemingly unbearable stress, and then there are just days. The going is tough, and it shouldn't be a breeze. Because after all, if it were, then you're clearly not solving a real problem. The only thing we can do is keep our heads up, stick to our guns, and know that we're doing the damnedest or change even a small part of the world. I love and I hate this game, but I wouldn't want to be doing anything different right now at this very moment. Now, I don't actually remember what I was feeling at that moment. That tells you just how fleeting these opportunities are and just how fleeting these emotions are. But I will still stand by that. I love what we did at Circa, and as Jason said, this is not the only game. When you're thinking about building these companies and you think this is the only thing that I can be doing right now, the reality is it is a marathon. And so when you're considering that, the most important thing to consider is, when in doubt, do the right thing, which is a really fucking vague statement, and it's not gonna help anybody in this audience other than to keep it in your head. But that moment that you feel like you're veering off the wrong path, it's gonna come back to haunt you. You're gonna think about those moments. You're going to think about them after the business has failed or after it's succeeded, but you had that ugly moment. You're gonna have to go right back to that moment and realize, did I do the right thing? Because it will continue to be with you forever. I feel like I've done everything I can in my career, especially in this company, especially as it was winding down, to always do the right thing. And so when I do decide to pop my head back up and get back into the game, hopefully the people that backed me once will back me again. Hopefully the team that I had will be proud of those moments that we shared together. And hopefully the world can look back at Circa as a positive experience. So if you have any questions at all, if you just want to say hi, just reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, very easy to get a hold of me. I'm just at MG. So thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you for being so honest. And it is super hard. When you look back on everything, what do you think? Do you think of when you think of things you might change, right? Obviously, that's what we all do when you have a little bit of space, and you've had a little bit of space now. Do you think having a subscription early on and just training people to pay for it, $5 a month or $10 a month, would have worked? Possibly. We see Pando Daily couldn't make it on advertising revenue, and they just said, screw it, we're going to have a small couple of person staff and go paid. And I think Sarah Lacey says they're almost there. They might actually survive if they do it. Do you think covering the hard news, do you think if you looked at it going after the lighthearted news and being a little more link-baity, clickbaity like Business Insider and BuzzFeed, if you're doing it again, would you have put that stuff in there?
It's hard.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where you're never really going to know. And the fact is, we can look at two ends of the spectrum. We can look at the information, which is doing hard news, but it's also extremely original. Everything that they do is well researched. It's a staff that they've done that is trained in building really, really unique news. And they're able to charge a premium for that. They're able to charge their subscription. Likewise, you have the New York Times that did NYT Now that launched with a subscription, reduced with that subscription, and it's now a free product.
Right.
Because they found that even the grand old lady that is the New York Times was not able to get people to buy their product. And so whether Circa's combination of our hard news with our unique user experience would have been able to achieve that, it's hard to tell by now.
Okay, now what about the clickbaiting and the fact that, gosh, you were up against people who were doing, you'll never believe what Marissa Mayer does every morning to make herself successful. Click here, and she eats oatmeal.
Given the choice to do that or shut it down, I would shut it down every time.
Yeah, you didn't want to be in the pandering business. Well, listen, I think this was a really seminal talk. I think for a lot of founders, this is going to become a roadmap. We're going to definitely be looking back at the video, and I think you're very brave for coming here and doing it. And as one of your investors, I can tell you for sure, you were always a class act, always very considered, and you executed at a high level. I will absolutely invest in your next company. I really am proud of the association I had with Circa and with you especially. Let's hear it one more time for Matt.